My name's Ryan. I'm 29. And while I was serving in Afghanistan, my brother moved into my bed. We weren't there yet at the airport. Back then it was just burnt coffee. Fluorescent light. And Kyle grinning as he tapped the laminated checklist I'd made. You're ridiculous, he said. But I got you. The deal was simple. Once a week, he'd swing by my place, water the snake plant, grab the mail, snap the thermostat, run the faucets. I'd pay him $50 per visit. I even prepaid $200 on May 3. At the rope by security. He hugged me. Don't worry, bro. Your place will be perfect when you get home. Kyle has always been the golden child. Not for grades. Gravity just bends toward him. When he missed curfew, Mom called it self-discovery. When I needed help with textbooks, Dad said, "You'll figure it out." Kyle borrows with charm. I borrow with paperwork. Deploying swapped spring for sand. I tucked that checklist behind a lake photo and the chipped navy mug I'd left by the sink like a lighthouse. Week 1, thumbs up and a mailbox pic. Week 2, heroic snake plant. Week 3, my bad one after work. Plus a blurry thermostat at 78 degrees. First wobble. June 3:1:4 a.m. My time Zell $120. Lock felt sticky, called a locksmith. I'd left a spare with Mrs. Chin across the hall for real emergencies. But I sent the cash and wrote, "Keep the receipt." He replied, "You're the best. I'll pay you Friday." He didn't. June D. Sweet. 9:52 p.m. Gas money, $60. Been going more than once a week to be safe. I warned, once a week is fine. He sent a crossed fingers emoji. I transferred $60 anyway. I should have known Kyle turns favors into footholds. July 1. 7:08 p.m. Uber back. Neighborhood sketch at night. $95 cool. His photo showed my counter, my chipped mug, and takeout I never buy. I said yes. The word brother can soften a lot of edges. Mrs. Chen messaged, "Your brother's car is here every day. Everything okay?" Photo his sedan parked in my assigned spot 3 mornings in a row. 10 minutes later, she added, "Young lady with him. Bags." I asked Kyle, "You living there now?" He replied, "Nah, extra thorough with security checks." Then Mrs. Chen is sweet but intense. I kept it simple. Quick live pic when you're there. He'd send an old photo, same calendar page. Summit your real bucks. If I asked for video, bad connection. Not at your place right now. Mid-July. My landlord, Amber, left a careful voicemail. They'd received a caretaker form, adding Kyle, and a request for a second key. I hadn't signed anything. When I called Kyle, he said, "I'm just trying to help. What if something happens?" He texted a screen capture box, checked for temporary guardian, a signature that looked like mine if my wrist were asleep. I stared at the mug's chipped stripe and reminded myself, small details save you the scratch that proves a thing is yours. The squeak your door makes in humidity. I messaged Mrs. Chen, "Thanks." Resent Kyle the checklist with one new line: "No overnight guests. Read at 10:11 p.m. No reply. Before lights out. I wrote on the back of my laminated card, "When in doubt, ask for proof." I slid it behind the lake photo and tried to sleep. Belief is stubborn. Mine still thought family would fix this. The first bank alert hit at 2:06 a.m. 54美元. 73 at Greenway Market. 2 blocks from my place. I called. "Did you use my card at Greenway?" "Yeah." Kyle said, "Gentle, you told me to grab groceries from your account. Basics. Keep the receipt." "Of course. Love you. Man." 2 days later, $84. 19 at the Lantern. Timestamp 9:08 m. Emergency. He said, "Shady guy in the lobby." I ducked in and grabbed a bite. "I'll pay you back when you're home." Then $127. 43 at the same spot. Saturday at 1:13 p.m. 38美元. 66 for gas. 89美元. 99 at a clothing store I've never set foot in. Receipts never appeared. Mrs. Chin again, "Your brother carries in big grocery bags." Photo trunk open. Bulk sparkling water. A gaming headset box. Loud last night. I knocked at 11. Girl wore your college shirt. I started a folder named Paper Trail Screenshots. Dates. Amounts. Calm by increments. Amber emailed the scanned caretaker form box ticked. My name typed. A signature that wasn't mine. And a margin note invoking active duty. He'd leveraged the one thing that shouldn't be leverage. Another alert. $212. 58 at priority print and mail. 39美元. 50 at the cafe next door. When I called the print shop, the clerk wouldn't confirm. But her pause said enough. On the phone with Mom. She floated across the surface. Kyle's really stepped up. We're proud of him. Old tilt. He always lands on his feet. I said. The pattern sharpened Burrow furniture box in a photo. More packages. In his name. Parties. I froze the compromise card. Left it live 2 more days to map his habits. Then shut it down. He noticed. Amber. He asked about renewing early. We told him the tenant must be present. I replied. Good. No new names or keys without my written approval. Resolve replaced belief. I requested emergency leave. 3 pages. 2 signatures. 1 true reason. Family emergency. I told no one I was coming. I wanted the truth before it could hide. At 5:58 a.m. The hallway smelled like lemon cleaner and old carpet. Mrs. Chen cracked her door on the chain. You're back, she whispered, handing me a labeled key ring. He showed mine. She smiled and shut the door. My key met resistance. Then gave. The door opened onto bacon. Low music. And a cedar candle I hadn't lit since the night before I left. Morning. Babe. A voice called from the kitchen then stopped. She wore my college t-shirt. Sleeves nodded. Recognition flickered, defensiveness settled. Kyle shuffled out of my bedroom in my bathrobe. Hair dump. Confidence evaporating when he saw me. Oh. Hey. You're early. I'm on emergency leave. I said. Figured I'd check on the apartment. We've been taking really good care of it. He said. Hands trying to include bacon. Girlfriend. Robe. I moved through the room like a slow camera, 2 toothbrushes in the bathroom cup. Hair tie on my nightstand. Router labeled K and MHQ with a blocky Sharpie password. Fridge stocked with brands I never buy. A gaming headset box under the table. Collapsed shipping boxes by the door. On the counter the caretaker form. Highlighted like a trophy. The signature at the bottom looked like mine after a long run on a hot day. Send me a photo of whatever you signed. I said. It's right there. He said. Relieved. I took wide and close photo signature. Active duty margin note. The router label. His K sharpied onto my coffee maker. Context is a kind of truth. You can crash on the couch. He said. Rent's insane. I've got legal residency now. He said legal residency like phonics. You made you the caretaker. I said. With my name. I asked for the keys. We only have spares. He said. Landlord made new copies when we added me. Then softer coffee. I looked at the K on the machine and shook my head. I cataloged quickly mail with his name at my address. The hoodie I'd seen charged. My nightstand drawer cracked to show the brass storage key. I photographed everything with clocks and frame. Don't be dramatic. He snapped. We're family. We were. I said. That used to mean not stealing. I stepped into the hall and called the number I'd rehearsed. I'm active duty. I told the calm voice. Someone used my name to become me. I spoke slowly. With dates. When I hung up, I knew the next knock wouldn't be a neighbor. The operator logged everything and connected base legal with federal partners. Do not escalate verbally. She said. Secure what's yours. I lined the evidence on the counter lease. Addendum. Bank alerts. Mrs. Chin spiral with tidy notes. 7/22 party. Base too heavy. Photos with clocks. At 6:26 a.m. Agent Morales called. 5 minutes out. He said. We'll keep it simple. They arrived quiet. Morales and Lee IDs flashed without theater. IDs. Please. Morales said to Kyle and the girlfriend. She produced hers. He found his wallet under my coffee table. Lee photographed the router label and the coffee maker's Sharpie K. Morales smoothed the forged form and aligned a silver pin to its edge. Whose signature is this? Kyle smiled. Ryan's. He authorized me. He was hard to reach. Ryan Morales asked. No. I said. Lee pointed to the date. Submitted June 29. Where were you? Ryan. Afghanistan. I said. I have orders and logs. Amber confirmed on speaker that a key had been issued from the submitted form and no lease changes were processed. Morales kept his voice level. Representing yourself as another person to obtain access, especially invoking active duty, is document fraud. Any unauthorized use of accounts is separate. Kyle cycled denial offense bargaining. He told me to use the card for groceries. I have receipts. Please produce them. Morales said. There. In the car. Of course. Morales capped the pin. Hands in front. Please. The cuffs clicked two precise notes that sounded like a verdict. Kyle looked around my living room for a witness bacon plate. Robe. Router label. Mug with the K. None spoke. Amber arrived at 803 with a locksmith. New cylinders. New keys. New keypad code. Building security hovered. Professional and invisible. Morales gave me a case number and the one instruction I needed. Keep doing what you're doing. Photos. Dates. Don't contact him. Kyle stared at me. Wonder and fury braided together. You really called them? I made a call I can live with. I said. The hallway swallowed them. The new lock answered with a clean, confident click. The apartment finally held a hush that didn't make me prove I belonged. I slid Morales's pin and the forged form into a folder labeled paper trail. Amber texted a building notice. I filed it. I scrubbed the K off the coffee maker until it was just steel again. I peeled K and MHQ off the router and reset the password to something I wrote exactly nowhere. Mrs. Chin brought almond cookies and surveyed the room from the threshold. Quiet is better, she said. You look taller. I have fewer people on my floor, I said. And she smiled. I changed the sheet's new page. Crisp white, and put the brass storage key back in the nightstand. My phone lit up. Mom. We heard about Kyle, she said. You didn't have to go so far. I went legal, I said gently. That's straight. Not far. He's your brother. I hope he gets help, I said. But I can't be the help that costs me my life. We found the one thing we could share. Be good to yourself, she said. I plan to, I answered. I made a yellow pad list and checked boxes. Locks changed. Accounts frozen. Router reset. Dispute is filed. Case saved. Thank Mrs. Chen. Sleep. Amber returned. We added bold language to the lease. No additional residents divided by keys, divided by access without the tenant's written authorization. We flagged the unit for in-person verification on any future request. I carried Kyle's packages to the lobby with security. Posted misdelivered. Returned to Cinder by Friday. Back upstairs, I bagged the last things that weren't mine. Shirts. A stray sneaker. Citrus cologne that smelled like apologies. Under the couch, 3 coins. A game token. 1 false eyelash. The vacuum ate the eyelash like a period. At 6. Sunlight drew its slow rectangle across my rug, the one I'd pictured overseas. I stood in it barefoot. Night came easy. I logged one last entry. August 3. 9:12 p.m. Home stabilized. Administrative actions underway. Emotional state steady. Clinical and true. Morning. 6:10 a.m. The fridge hummed and the lock turned with the sound I want to live with. I handed Mrs. Chen a spare set tagged bright red. For true emergencies. She weighed them and nodded. I like your new rule, she said when I told her what I'd added to the checklist. Readiness. Good word. Outside. The day was school supply blue. The super hauled a half-peeled burro box toward the dumpster. Things that don't belong. Leave. Nature, doing maintenance. Back inside. I wrote the last line on my laminated list beneath water plant. Grab mail. Thermostat 78 degrees. Run sink. Boundaries are part of readiness. It looked right among the ordinary things that keep a place standing. People think justice is a thunderclap. Sometimes it's a series of clean clicks, the pen aligned to the edge. The email saved as PDF. The new lock answering only to you. Sometimes the safest bed comes with metal bars, just not the ones you sleep in. If you'd been me, would you have called sooner or gathered proof? Breathed. And made the call you can carry. Either way. I'm home. And today, home means get. Story, too. My brother's fiancée pointed to a folding chair behind a plant and said, "This is a classy event. Perhaps you ought to go." After glancing at the whole space I had paid for, I thought, maybe I should. I immediately canceled everything. The wedding was instantly spoiled when the music stopped. Hello Reddit. Last Saturday was my brother's wedding. Was intended to be nonetheless. I covered the whole cost. Venue, DJ, flowers, food, etc. 58美元. 000 was spent in total. His fiancée then pointed to a foldable chair behind a pretty plant as my designated seat and informed me I didn't belong at their elegant occasion. So, in the middle of the ceremony, I canceled everything. The expression on their faces as the music stopped off was simply priceless. This was more than simply seating arrangements. So, allow me to back up and explain how we arrived at this conclusion. I'm Marcus, a 3-4-year-old man who works in the development of commercial real estate, began 12 years ago as a junior analyst, climbed the ranks to become a partner at a company that manages large projects across 3 states. Long hours and good pay. But I've created something I'm proud of. In an area where the typical home worth is $400. Ling ling ling. I own my house entirely. Drive a paid-off Ford F-150 and have a sizable emergency fund because, as I discovered early on, family may let you down when you least expect it. My 28-year-old brother Tyler is essentially a professional failure dressed in expensive designer clothing. He has never saved more than $500 in his life. Living with 3 roommates in an apartment complex that peaked in 1987. Working part-time at a supplement store while referring to himself as a wellness entrepreneur. Having dropped out of college twice. Bouncing between retail jobs and get-rich quick schemes. And driving a BMW that he can hardly afford. However, Tyler has something that I obviously never had the capacity to convince our parents that my accomplishments are only fortunate breaks and his failures are merely short-term setbacks. I was the responsible one growing up, when Dad's construction firm had difficult times throughout recessions. Good grades, a part-time work in high school, and dishwashing at a nearby restaurant helped with family expenditures. Tyler was the charming one. Could charm his way out of trouble. Make Mom laugh when she was anxious about expenses. Persuade Dad that his new business idea was certainly going to succeed this time. I received a partial scholarship to State University after graduating high school with a 3.88 gigapascals. The family celebration consisted of a $50 cash card and supper at Applebee's. They gave Tyler a celebration with a beautifully prepared cake, invited the neighbors, and snapped pictures as if he had won the Nobel Prize when he just managed to accumulate enough credits to graduate 2 years later with a 2.1 gigapascal. Tyler put a lot of effort into overcoming his learning obstacles. Mom would tell anybody who would listen, whether it was at the bank or the grocery store, since my half scholarship still left me with hefty living and tuition fees. I was working 25 hours a week at the university library while completing 18 credit hours. Throughout college, the trend persisted. After from summa cum laude with a degree in business and finance, I found an entry-level job with Morrison & Associates Real Estate Development and began systematically advancing my career. Working 60-hour weeks on projects that no one else was interested in, gaining knowledge of all facets of commercial development, including construction management, finance, and site selection. After a semester, Tyler left college to pursue music, purchased a guitar, and mastered 3 chords, then returned to study graphic design before dropping out once again to undertake a 2-week coding boot camp. After that, he returned to college to study business. But he too dropped out since his lecturers didn't appreciate his creative thinking. Tyler would always justify his decisions by claiming that he was pivoting, pursuing his passion, or defying expectations. Each time I did anything, it was because I was fortunate, or had it easier way, or simply played it safe instead of taking actual chances. Dad said, "It must be nice working for a company that appreciates you." In reaction to my first promotion to senior analyst, Tyler has a spirit of entrepreneurship. He was never meant to climb the corporate ladder. He thinks creatively. When I purchased my first home at 26, a modest 3-bedroom ranch that needed maintenance but had nice bones, Mom observed, "Your job must pay pretty well." Tyler's more interested in experiences than material things. He's got his priorities straight. 2 unsuccessful efforts to launch internet enterprises were among Tyler's experiences. One dropships phone accessories from China, while the other sells inspirational ebooks he never created. Before everyone became weary of his sales pitches at family get-togethers, He spent around 6 months selling essential oils to our relatives and a short time trying to establish himself as a social media influencer by sharing exercise videos in our parents' basement. This is where the wedding tragedy comes into play. However, Tyler has always been adept at persuade our parents to excuse his mistakes as opportunities for character development while making me feel bad about my accomplishments. Tyler phoned me in tears at 11 p.m. when I was 29. On a Tuesday, his rent was past due. He needed $3,000 to get back on his feet since his vehicle was about to be repossessed. This came shortly after he had used credit cards to travel around Europe for 2 months in order to discover who he was and to get life experience that money cannot buy. No, I said. Not because it was out of my price range. The cash was sitting in my savings account. But because I was sick of helping him fix issues he caused with careless decisions and never learning from them. Tyler contacted his mother right away. I spoke with both parents on a conference call within an hour about how I was ignoring my family and putting pride above love. Dad said that if you are unable to assist people who are near to you, achievement is meaningless. Tyler made some errors, but he's learned from them. Mom emphasized it, using her martyred mother voice. He just needs one opportunity to establish his worth. One opportunity to demonstrate his capacity for responsibility. How many opportunities does he have? I inquired. Since I'm very certain that this is chance number 15. Family helps family. Pulling out his favorite phrase. Dad said, "My brother gave me a loan for equipment while I was starting my firm. That's what families do. Despite everything, we remained together." 2 hours were spent on the guilt trip. They portrayed Tyler as an impoverished young guy who was prepared to change his ways despite his past transgressions. Every accomplishment I had made was reframed as a justification for endorsing Tyler's recklessness, all the while presenting me as the affluent but distant elder brother who had forgotten his origins. In the end, I gave Tyler the cash. The alternative was months of family guilt trips, passive-aggressive remarks at every event, and being portrayed as the bad guy who abandoned his family when they most needed him, not because I thought he had learned anything. After using the funds to settle his current bills, Tyler toasted his new beginning with a weekend vacation to Vegas with his pals that he recorded extensively on social media. Tyler accused me of being domineering and resentful when I pointed out that going to Vegas wasn't exactly a wise financial move for someone who had just been pulled out of debt. You have no right to evaluate the lives of others based only on your own accomplishments. His words formed the family story. Maybe if you took some risks and actually lived a little, you'd understand that life is about more than just accumulating money. Despite my success, I was resentful and domineering. Tyler, on the other hand, had the correct outlook on life despite his struggles. While I was slaving away in corporate America, he was enjoying life to the fullest, approximately every 18 months. The cycle was repeated. Tyler would make bad decisions and end himself in financial difficulty. At first, I would decline to assist. With well-planned campaigns involving many family members, family pressure would increase, and I would ultimately give in to maintain harmony. Tyler's feeling of entitlement increased with each growing sum. A business course that would teach him what he needed to know about e-commerce cost $4. Why? The $2,800 for photography equipment when he decided to become a wedding photographer. Before he gave up, he photographed precisely one wedding. When his roommate abruptly left, he was left paying the entire rent for 3 months, which came to $6. Lambe. Every bailout was accompanied by assurances that Tyler was changing his ways and that this was the last time he would ever learn his lesson. The major one was last year's crisis. Each time my parents presented my eventual help as an investment in Tyler's future rather than condoning his recklessness, Tyler had managed to rack up $18.0 credit card debt while launching his wellness coaching business. This included purchasing a number of certification courses that he never finished, renting space for workshops that never took place because no one signed up, and buying inventory for supplements he intended to sell online. For months, the supplement inventory was kept in the garage of mom and dad. Tyler was unable to sell boxes of protein powder and vitamins because he had never bothered to do market research or comprehend fundamental business concepts like customer acquisition and profit margins. After 6 months of little work, the business inevitably failed, and Tyler, then 27 years old, was on the verge of bankruptcy. But rather than take ownership of the situation, he made up a story about how the market wasn't prepared for his novel approach to wellness and how he had gained important knowledge that would help his next business succeed. There was a lot of family pressure. Mom called me in tears, telling me that I was the only one who could save Tyler and that he was going to lose everything. Dad would say. Dad gave me lectures about family loyalty and helping those less fortunate. Tyler's got heart. During these talks, he puts himself out there and takes chances. That requires bravery. He shouldn't be punished for trying. Even if it didn't work out. I retorted that there is a distinction between making reckless choices and taking measured risks. Mom retorted. That's easy to say when you've got a steady paycheck and no dependents. Tyler is attempting to construct something. It's more difficult than simply going to work every day. The comment about simply showing up to an office was especially hurtful. I had worked 80-hour weeks for years. Developed relationships with clients in 3 states. Learned intricate project management and financial modeling. Negotiated multi-million-dollar deals. And earned every promotion by proving my abilities. But in my family story, I was merely blessed to have a dull, secure career while Tyler was the bold entrepreneur. Additionally, they conveniently disregarded the fact that I had to pay more than $25. 0 inches bailouts over the preceding 5 years due to Tyler's building something phase. I settled Tyler's debt while my consistent income had been supporting his bad choices and way of life. The alternative was to see him file for bankruptcy and return to live with our parents, which would have made every family get-together intolerable and likely led to further demands for financial support, not because I bought into the family propaganda. In response to my $18,000 present, Tyler said, "Thanks. Man, I really thank you for believing in me. I can now concentrate on my next project without worrying about debt." I believed in him as though I had invested in a promising startup rather than averting a financial catastrophe. And he was already discussing his next project before he had even finished clearing the debris from his previous failure. 2 months later, Tyler declared his engagement to Brianna, who is stunning in the Instagram influencer style. Social media savvy with 15,000 followers who believe her lifestyle is aspirational. From a wealthy family. And who has never worked a day in her life unless you include running her personal brand and sharing sponsored content for skincare products. Brianna is everything Tyler believes he deserves but has never earned. Her mother does charity work as a hobby because she doesn't need the money. Her father owns a chain of luxury car dealerships in 2 states. And Brianna herself holds a master's degree in art history from a private university. But she's never used it because the art world is too political and doesn't value creative thinking. In her social circle, entrepreneurship is automatically cool, regardless of results. And Brianna fits Tyler's fantasy of himself as someone who deserves luxury without earning it. She also validates Tyler's belief that his failures are temporary setbacks on his path to the success he's clearly destined for, rather than true failures. She spent the entire evening talking about her family's recent trip to Italy, their plans to renovate their vacation home in the mountains, and her consideration of starting a lifestyle blog because so many people have asked for advice about living authentically. Mom was completely enthralled. She's so sophisticated. She told me after Tyler introduced her to the family at Sunday dinner, Tyler's numerous failed endeavors give him the appearance of being adventurous rather than reckless. Tyler is an expert at choosing them. Her father has developed something pretty spectacular with those dealerships. I found Brianna tiresome. Dad was pleased by Brianna's family's prosperity. Those are the kind of connections that could really help Tyler's career. He added, as if Tyler had a profession to help. She possessed Tyler's entitled attitude without even his meager work ethic, which is why she was successful, not because she was affluent or privileged. Since many successful people come from money and still work hard. At least Tyler had attempted to launch enterprises, even if they failed catastrophically. Then came the wedding planning. And I kept my thoughts to myself. But Brianna had never attempted anything but to look good and spend other people's money while posting about it online. Tyler was an adult. And if he wanted to marry someone whose idea of a challenge was to choose between yoga and Pilates while documenting both options for her followers, then that was his choice. In a professionally shot proposal on a Malibu beach, Tyler and Brianna announced their engagement. The images, which I later found out cost $2,000 for a 2-hour session, featured Tyler kneeling in the sand and Brianna looking astonished and thrilled in a flowing white dress that was clearly not picked at random. The ring, a 2-carat princess cut diamond that cost $12,000 and was featured prominently in all of Brianna's social media posts, was financed over 3 years at 18% interest. Because Tyler's credit score precluded traditional financing, the wedding planning started right away. And Brianna had been dreaming of her ideal wedding since she was 8 years old. A destination ceremony at a historic location, a designer dress from a Los Angeles boutique, a full professional photography package that included engagement and day of photos, a seated dinner for 150 guests, a premium open bar with top-notch liquor, a live band rather than a DJ, and opulent lodging for an out-of-town family were all part of her concept of what that meant. All of this was totally acceptable to Tyler, who saw the wedding as the ideal beginning to their new life together, proving to everyone, especially Brianna's prosperous family, that he had finally made it, and as evidence that his numerous business failures had culminated in his marriage into wealth and connections. There was only one tiny issue. Neither Tyler nor Brianna had any money to pay for any of it. Brianna's parents were affluent, but they'd already spent big money on her elder sister's wedding 2 years ago. A $75,000 ceremony in Napa Valley that had been covered in a regional magazine. Tyler contributed about $800 and a lot of energy to the wedding fund, and they were willing to contribute $15,000 to Tyler and Brianna's wedding, which was generous, but far from enough for the celebration Brianna had in mind. The family meeting took place at Mom and Dad's house on a Sunday afternoon in February. Their dream wedding cost $100K with ding ding ding. And Tyler and Brianna presented their vision with the kind of meticulous planning typically found in military operations: venue options with professional photography, catering menus with pricing tiers, photographer, portfolios with package comparisons, and a detailed budget spreadsheet that broke down costs by category. As if negotiating this contribution had been a huge business success, Tyler proudly announced, "We have $15,000 from Brianna's parents, and we have about $3,000 saved up." That left a $40,000 gap, which Tyler and Brianna looked around the room, expecting someone else to fill. "We'd love to assist, but with the economic downturn last year," the fact was that Dad's construction firm had been suffering since the 2008 crisis and never really recovered. Mom and Dad looked at each other, and Dad cleared his throat and moved in his chair. "Son, that's a lot of money." Tyler looked disappointed but not surprised. "And then everyone's eyes were on me," Mom said carefully, in her diplomatic voice. "Marcus has been so successful lately. They were barely making ends meet. But they didn't have $40,000 discretionary income for a wedding. And their contribution would be maybe $2,000 if they stretched their budget." With her well-practiced smile, Brianna added, "And he's always been so generous with family. We'd be honored if you wanted to be part of making our special day happen. It would mean so much to have your support." I sat there taking it all in, realizing that they weren't asking me to help with the wedding. "That's a significant amount of money," I said slowly. "But think about what it represents," Tyler said, leaning forward with the same enthusiasm he usually reserved for his failed business ventures. "They were asking me to pay for almost 3/4 of it. And they were framing it as an honor rather than a huge financial burden that would cost me more than most people's annual salary. This isn't simply a wedding. The venues we're looking at are some of the most beautiful in the state. Your investment would create memories that last forever." Brianna nodded solemnly. "It's the beginning of our life together. And having family support means everything to us. This could be great for networking. Brianna's father is bringing some of his business associates. These are the kind of connections that could open doors for all of us." I made what turned out to be a crucial mistake. "As if I were purchasing stock in their marriage instead of subsidizing their party," Tyler added. The pressure campaign was relentless and sophisticated over the next 2 weeks, with Brianna sending me Pinterest boards with centerpiece options and color schemes, and Tyler calling every day with updates about venues they would lose if we didn't make a decision soon. Brianna always emphasized how elegant and tasteful everything would be. The emotional manipulation was especially clever. I wasn't just being asked to pay for a wedding. I was being asked to show my love for my brother, my dedication to family values, and my development as a person who'd learned to share his success with those he cared about. Mom sent me articles about the value of family support during major life transitions. Dad pulled me aside after a family dinner at their house. A wedding like this would set them up right, help them start their marriage with confidence and connections. And if they can't afford the wedding they want, that's not the point. The point is that you can afford it and they need help. I know it's a lot of money, son. But Tyler's finally found something genuine with Brianna. The comparison was offensive because I had been working for 6 years, had already gotten 2 promotions, and was overseeing commercial development projects valued at millions of dollars when I was Tyler's age. "You were also just starting out when you were Tyler's age. He will succeed in his own time. But for now, he needs help." I agreed to pay for the wedding because I wanted to avoid months of family strife and guilt trips. Not because I agreed with Tyler's claims of being an entrepreneur and selling supplements on the side, I also had the hope that this gesture would finally appease Tyler's sense of entitlement and allow us to move on to a healthier relationship. But I was mistaken. Tyler and Brianna's attitude toward me became even more entitled after I agreed to pay. I was no longer just Tyler's giving older brother, but their personal ATM with an infinite credit line, and every choice they made automatically affected my finances. The initial budget, including their contributions, was $58. Ding ding ding. The venue alone ended up costing $28. 000 instead of the original $20. 000 because Brianna decided she needed the premium package with upgraded linens, additional lighting, and exclusive use of the bridal suite for the entire day. By the time all the decisions were made, the total cost had skyrocketed to $73. Ling ling ling. And they expected me to cover every overage without complaining. The photographer went from $4,000 to $7. $500 because they wanted both engagement photos and day of coverage, plus a second photographer to capture candid moments and artistic details. And the catering went from $18 to $24. Ling ling ling. She explained that the basic package was appropriate for more informal events, but their wedding required elevated sophistication. Each increase was justified as necessary to achieve their vision because Brianna insisted on a premium menu that included specialty cocktails, upgraded appetizers, and a dessert station in addition to the wedding cake. They looked to me expectantly to make up the difference without feeling bad about the extra cost. When the venue cost increased by $8, ling ling ling, Brianna explained that the upgraded lighting really makes the venue magical. Tyler nodded enthusiastically, saying, "We could go with the basic package, but this is our wedding. We want it to be perfect." The musicians went from a DJ at $1, $200 to a live band at $4, 000 because live music would create the right atmosphere for Brianna's family. The bar package increased when they upgraded from standard liquor to premium brands, and the florist bill went from $3 to $5. $500 because Brianna wanted upgraded centerpieces and a ceremony arch that required special ordering. I paid for this because I want people to remember this day forever. We're trying to balance everything perfectly. Tyler said over the phone when he called to discuss the seating arrangements 3 weeks prior to the wedding. All of the changes were justified as necessary for the quality of the event they were hosting, but no one ever asked if I was comfortable with the additional costs. Okay, so where do you want me to sit? Well, that's sort of what I wanted to talk about. Brianna's parents are bringing some business associates, and we need to make sure they're seated prominently. Brianna's family is bringing some pretty important people, and we want to make sure the reception runs smoothly. Where am I sitting? We've got you at a great table near the back, where you'll be with some of Brianna's college friends and their boyfriends. It's a really fun group of people. Her father is thinking of bringing me into his dealership network, so these relationships are really important for our future. Right, Tyler? I'm paying for this entire wedding. I know. And we're so grateful. But you understand how important tonight is for our future. Right. These connections could change everything for us. Change everything for them. Tyler wanted to put me in the back with a bunch of strangers so that Brianna's parents' business associates could have the prominent tables. I should have canceled everything right then. But I didn't want to ruin their wedding 3 weeks before the date. So I agreed to the seating arrangement and told myself it was just one night. The wedding day arrived, and the venue was ideal. I had used my money to network with Brianna's family's business contacts while being relegated to the social equivalent of the kids' table. Fairmont Estate. A 1,924 estate with original hardwood flooring, crystal chandeliers, and windows facing well-kept gardens and a small lake. Was a renovated historic home with magazine-worthy grounds and beautiful flowers. I arrived early to check on setup details, wearing the navy suit Tyler had specifically requested so I wouldn't conflict with the wedding party photos. And the venue coordinator, Michelle, recognized me right away. "Mr. Williams, it's so nice to finally meet you in person." Everything was exactly as Tyler and Brianna had imagined, and the catering smelled amazing. Tyler and Brianna are fortunate to have such a supportive brother. Michelle was my main point of contact during the planning process. All vendor payments, contract modifications, and upgrade requests went through her and were approved by me. She was aware of who was responsible for each expense and was helpful and professional at all times. The reception area featured round tables with ivory linens, gold accents, and centerpieces that likely cost more than most people's monthly rent. And the ceremony space featured white chairs, arranged in perfect rows, with an aisle lined with rose petals, all while overlooking the lake with mountains in the background. The attention to detail was amazing. From the upgraded lighting that cast everything in a warm glow to the premium linens that felt luxurious to the touch. Everything was just as Tyler and Brianna had requested. And everything went sideways when Brianna arrived for photos. Her hair and makeup were impeccable, done by experts who had come at 600 a.m. to start the makeover. And she looked magnificent in a dress that cost more than my monthly vehicle payment. The dress was a Vera Wang, custom fitted with delicate beadwork that caught the light brilliantly. Before the ceremony started, I went up to greet them and wish them well. She was practically glowing with excitement, posing for pictures with her bridesmaids in matching silk robes. Tyler also looked good, calm and confident in a way I hadn't seen him since we were kids. His tuxedo was expertly tailored. His hair was styled professionally, and he had the expression of someone who felt like he'd finally accomplished something significant. Brianna smiled nicely. Can you believe this day is finally here? Everything looks incredible. Better than we even imagined. Marcus. Tyler smiled and drew me into an embrace. It really does, I said. You two should be very happy with how everything turned out. The smile you give someone who's helpful but not very important. Yes. It's exactly what we wanted. Thank you for helping make this happen. It's like I brought a casserole to a potluck instead of paying for their whole dream wedding. The venue coordinator said you wanted to take another look at the seating chart. Actually, no, Tyler replied. I'm sure you've got everything handled the way you want it. Brianna's expression changed slightly at that point, and her courteous smile became more forced. There was actually one minor issue. We had to make some last-minute changes to accommodate some of my parents' important guests. I hope it's okay with you to be accommodating. Not at a table. Not with other guests. She led me across the reception area, past tables laden with crystal glasses and fine china, toward what I thought would be my assigned table near the back. But instead she stopped in a corner of the room and gestured to a single folding chair that had been positioned behind a large decorative plant. This is actually a really special spot, Brianna added, adopting the condescending tone people use with challenging children. But it's more private for someone who might not be comfortable with the social aspects of the evening. There was a single metal folding chair concealed behind foliage, resembling a punishment seat for misbehaving kids. This is where you want me to sit behind a plant, I said, staring at the chair, which was a metal folding chair that looked like it belonged in a church basement and was entirely different from the tasteful Chiavari chairs at all the actual tables. Someone had actually brought in a different chair and concealed it behind a 7-foot decorative plant arrangement. We ended up with more of Brianna's family than anticipated, and some of her father's business associates from the dealerships needed proper seating for networking. You know how important these connections are for our future. It's not behind a plant, Brianna laughed, but there was an edge to it. It's near the garden area. Very peaceful. Some people prefer quieter space at large event. Tyler jumped in, trying to sound reasonable. This is a classy event with important people, and we thought you'd appreciate a quieter spot where you could enjoy the celebration without feeling compelled to socialize with people you don't know. So, you're seating me behind a plant, Brianna said sharply. Marcus, don't be dramatic. Maybe you should just try to enjoy the evening instead of making everything about you. This is supposed to be our special day. The event I paid $73,000 to make possible. The event that existed only because I'd written check after check for every single vendor, every upgrade, every detail they demanded. I looked around the venue and saw that every flower arrangement, table setting, and piece of elegant decor existed because of my money. The band was setting up on stage because I'd written them a check. And our special day was paid for entirely by the person they just told to sit behind a plant so he wouldn't embarrass them in front of people who might be useful to their careers. The guests were beginning to arrive. The bartender was setting up the premium liquor because I had paid for an open bar with top-tier brands. The photographer was adjusting his equipment because I had hired him using my credit card. I was responsible for every single detail of their elegant event. And they wanted me to hide behind a plant so I wouldn't embarrass them in front of people who might be useful to their careers. At last, I said, "You're right. Maybe I should leave." I could see Brianna's parents greeting business associates at the entrance. People in fancy suits who looked like they belonged at country club events. And they would get the best seats while the person who paid for everything sat alone behind decorative foliage. I pulled out my phone and called Michelle, the venue coordinator. "Hi, Michelle. This is Marcus Williams. I need you to cancel everything right now." Tyler's face went white. "What are you doing? Canceling the wedding?" Brianna appeared relieved, as if I had finally figured out my place in their hierarchy. I think that's probably best. Brianna agrees with obvious satisfaction. All of it. Music. Catering. Vendors. Everything. You can't do that. Brianna screamed. People are already coming. Well, I can. I'm the client and I'm canceling the event. Michelle's voice came over the phone speaker. Are you sure? Mr. Williams, the ceremony is scheduled to begin in 30 minutes. I'm absolutely certain. I hung up, looking at the horrified faces of Tyler and Brianna, and said, "This is insane," Tyler yelled. "You can't ruin our wedding because you're mad about a seating arrangement." "I'm not ruining your wedding because of a seating arrangement. Please notify all vendors immediately that the event is canceled and they should begin packing up. You've made it clear that I'm not welcome as a guest. So, I'm canceling an event that I paid for." Brianna was frantically texting someone. Most likely her parents. Which is against the law. You can't just abruptly terminate contracts. Every contract states that the client may do so at any time. I'm the client. And I'm canceling. Guests who had been taking pictures in the garden area looked around in confusion as the venue coordinator's voice came over the sound system. "Ladies and gentlemen, we regret to inform you that tonight's event has been canceled. We apologize for any inconvenience." The music stopped in the middle of the song, and the catering staff began gathering the freshly set out appetizer trays. Tyler grabbed my arm. "It's not about the seat, Tyler. It's about respect. You took my money, used it to plan your ideal wedding, and then treated me like an unwanted guest who might make you look foolish. Marcus, please, we can fix this. We'll find you a better seat. You can sit wherever you want." Brianna was crying now, her flawless makeup beginning to run. The band was already packing up their equipment when the photographer hesitantly approached us and asked, "Excuse me, should I continue taking photos or the event is canceled?" I told him, "You'll still be paid in full as per our contract." The guests were beginning to depart, looking bewildered and disappointed. "You're ruining our lives over your ego." "No. I'm stopping you from using my money to fund an event where I'm not wanted." While some were using their phones to take pictures of the chaos, Brianna's parents hurried over. Her father's face flushed with rage. "What the hell is going on?" he demanded. And Tyler's explanation was a frantic blurt about family drama, misunderstandings, and seating arrangements. Brianna's father looked at me and said, "You're the one who canceled this." I could have explained the years of being taken for granted, the pattern of entitlement, and the way Tyler and Brianna had treated my financial support as something they deserved rather than something they should appreciate. But there was no point in doing so. I paid for it. And then I was told I wasn't welcome at it. So, instead of being an adult about it, you chose to ruin their wedding day. The efficiency was actually impressive. And within 45 minutes, the entire elaborate wedding setup was being dismantled and loaded into trucks. Tyler followed me to my car, alternating between pleading and threatening. "Morris, please, we can reschedule," I said simply. I decided to stop funding an event where I wasn't wanted. This is our wedding day, Tyler, and you're ruining the most significant day of our life by deciding that I wasn't worthy of sitting with your other guests. You can arrange the whole seating chart. It's too late. We'll do everything differently. I got in my car and rolled down the window. And you got exactly what you asked for. You said maybe I should leave. So I did, taking my money with me. Brianna appeared behind him, still wearing her wedding dress, but looking like she had been through a hurricane. "So I'm going to sue you for this." "For what?" "Canceling an event I paid for emotional distress, for ruining our lives, for being vindictive." I kept expecting to feel terrible or regretful, but instead I felt lighter than I had in months. And for the first time in years, I had established a boundary and upheld it without giving in to pressure from relatives. My phone rang before I had even reached my house. Tyler and Brianna had to personally call each guest to inform them that the wedding was canceled. And most of the vendors kept their payments because the cancellation was last minute and not their fault. The aftermath was predictably dramatic. But I ignored them all and went inside to my quiet house. In the end, Tyler and Brianna had a courthouse ceremony 2 weeks later with their immediate families. No reception, no party, no celebration. Just a quick legal process to make their marriage official, and the family's response was divided but predictable. The venue, caterer, band, photographer, and florist were all paid in full for services that were never provided, while some family members discreetly reached out to offer support. My cousin David, who had observed Tyler's pattern of entitlement for years, called to say I'd done the right thing. Mom and Dad were upset with me for spoiling Tyler's special day and acting like a spoiled child. Several aunts and uncles also voiced their opinions about forgiveness and family loyalty. The most telling response came from Brianna's family, who, after initially being incensed over the wedding cancellation, apparently had some serious talks with their daughter about the circumstances that led to it. My uncle Robert, who had lent Tyler money that was never paid back, said it was time someone held him accountable. When you look at the specifics of what transpired, it's difficult to justify seating your wedding's only financial backer behind a decorative plant while networking with business associates at tables his money paid for. Tyler and Brianna's marriage was troubled from the start, and within a month it was evident that Brianna's father had decided not to bring Tyler into his dealership network after all. They had begun their marriage with enormous debt, little chance of the business contacts they had hoped for, and a family scandal that followed them to every social event. The cancellation of their wedding became a symbol of their financial dependency and bad judgment. For the first time in my adult life, I said no without hesitation, not with conditions or explanations or lectures about responsibility. When Tyler called me 6 months after the courthouse ceremony to ask for help again because they were behind on their rent and Brianna's spending habits were unsustainable, he needed $5,000 to get back on track. Using the same line that had worked for years, Tyler said, "But we're family. Family doesn't seat family behind plants at events they paid for." I shot back. Tyler attempted to explain that I was still harboring resentment over a miscommunication and that everyone makes mistakes. But the pattern was too obvious now, and his mistakes only qualified as mistakes when he was held accountable. When someone else paid for it, they became teaching moments. I wished him luck and hung up. Tyler and Brianna divorced a year later. Their relationship was unsustainable due to the financial strain and Brianna's dissatisfaction at not being able to access Tyler's successful family connections. Tyler returned to living with our parents. YouTube has released a new hype function. If you're hooked on this story, hit the hype button. Brianna moved back in with hers. The fairy tale they attempted to construct with my money lasted for about 18 months. Story 3. She covertly checked all my communications to locate evidence of my interracial romance. My boyfriend was called a manipulator by 6 members of my family, who then pushed me to block him while threatening to issue a restraining order. While completing my undergraduate studies in 2020, I, 25 ferrets, met my boyfriend, 29 meters, who also worked in the same area. Our first discussions covered a wide range of topics, including our worldviews, culture, religion, and personal beliefs. And we soon discovered how wonderfully our ideals matched. He is witty, focused, intelligent, gifted, and driven. I was also really in love. I still am. After 2 months, we formally announced it. On the down low, we both knew we wanted to be married. Naturally. However, we took our time since we were still finishing off school. Although we are not of the same ethnicity, we have a similar religious heritage. Because we weren't sure how our parents would respond, we were both anxious to inform them about our relationship. The majority of ethnic parents would prefer that their children maintain their cultural identity. However, based on my understanding, they may initially be resistant, but will gradually change their minds. Ethnicity is irrelevant to me. I think it's more significant that we share the same religion since we're both religious. Since my parents are also quite religious, I assume they would share my belief that their cultural norms shouldn't take precedence over their religious beliefs. Anyway, my partner didn't wait too long to tell his parents. They welcomed me with open arms and were very supportive, as were his siblings. However, I was the one who delayed the longest since I was really unsure about my parents' reaction. To be honest, I don't have a close connection with my parents, and I'm a little afraid of them. They do care, of course, but not to the extent that I feel comfortable approaching them and sharing my vulnerabilities. Not my dad. For sure, I'm at blame in this situation because, despite the difficulty, I should have told them the truth about my relationship rather than keeping it a secret. My parents didn't know till my siblings did. They were indifferent. However, because interracial marriage is going to be difficult, my sister, Arshijul, who is the eldest and therefore the third parent, was too alarmed about it and told me to simply end the relationship. However, I didn't need that advice. And I also didn't want to simply break up with him. I truly believe he's my soulmate. In my opinion, her entire attitude toward it was fairly reasonable. I do not wish to be a part of this mess. My mom discovered my partner's birthday card in my room. I believe a year into our relationship, She discovered my collection of his greeting cards and went through them all. She wasn't even angry when she confronted me with them. She freaked out. Though, when I told her about his ethnicity, my dad simply laughed in my face and wouldn't even let me speak after she forced me to tell him. It took a few days for my mom to settle down, because honestly, she truly was overreacting. The conclusion was that they wanted me to break up with them because they weren't happy with the relationship. Naturally, I didn't want to. It was ignored. And my partner and I carried on dating and even took some trips together for the following 3 years. However, my parents were not informed of the details of the situation, which is obviously extremely dishonest. However, they didn't, in my opinion, establish a secure environment where I could be open with them. The topic of us would only come up sporadically throughout those 3 years because, at this time, he and I are ready to be engaged and all we need is my dad's approval. I couldn't simply tell them, "Oh, hey, I'm going out for dinner and he's going to be there by love you XO." Every time, there would be a disagreement, bruised emotions, and no blessings. They wouldn't even let him meet them. I continued to exercise patience and hope that my dad would change his mind or whatever. My dad hadn't had a genuine conversation with me in around 2 years by the middle of 2024. But my mom is much more understanding. I wouldn't say she's supportive, but understanding at least. She claims that interracial marriages just don't work and that she only wants to assist me escape an unhappy union. But she'll be with me if I'm that certain about him, and she'll be there with open arms if it doesn't work. She has always been the more sensible of my parents, who are both conservative. In addition to the initial panic, the disaster has now occurred. My sister abruptly intervened at the end of 2024 and requested to see my lover. She's my dad's favorite, and she's the one who could change his mind the most. My girlfriend and I were thrilled about this chance because it seemed like there was finally hope for the future. Although we have been patient, our relationship was beginning to suffer as a result of all of this stress, particularly over the last 2 years. But we always worked things out via conversation since we loved each other so much and didn't want to let go. He spent hours talking with sister. It went well, and he made a nice impression on her, even if I wasn't there. And she said she'll speak to my dad. As an aside, he and I had already agreed that we wouldn't have to reveal how often we visited one another or the travels he took. We realized the dishonesty and concealing was wrong. However, we believed that we at least had a right to such privacy. He's the kind that loves to be honest and simply says, "Fuck what people think." But I just didn't believe honesty works with my parents, especially my dad, because he's someone that's very critical and will shame you for your different values divided by belief divided by WTV. I thought everything would be fine from this point on. But my sister started acting strange and aloof, and she would dismiss my questions when I asked her what was wrong. After 3 weeks, the new year has arrived. I had a strong feeling that something was wrong when my mother sent me out to do some errands for her at an odd hour of the day. "Sit down. We need to talk." My heart sinks as I get home to see my parents and siblings in the living room. I'm sorry if this is not very descriptive, since honestly the happened was so awful. They claimed to have employed an investigator to learn all there was to know about my partner and our relationship. That was untrue. Naturally, my parents didn't want to acknowledge that my sister had broken into my gadgets, combed through all of my emails and texts, and scoured my whole room. Later, she acknowledged it with pride. And based on their research, they came to the conclusion that I am a victim of this relationship and that he is a liar, gaslighter, and manipulator. They said that I was coerced into lying and doing things against my will, that they learned about all of our dates and vacations and are holding him responsible for them, and that his lavish presents are only a ploy to control me. Many things were uttered, and I just felt degraded and ashamed. I was unable to protect myself or him since it was 6 against 1, as they spoke endlessly about what they had found and whatever conclusions they had drawn from it. I felt as if I was being stripped nude. Since we live semi-far apart, we communicate mostly via text. Therefore, it seemed incredibly intrusive for people to read about our private talks, our disputes when we both displayed some pretty nasty parts of ourselves, and my vulnerable side, which I only felt safe sharing him. They said that I was destroying the family bond and that he was causing a rift between us. They succeeded in making me feel ashamed. I felt like I had no option but to cooperate with them and leave him when they gave me an ultimatum. I felt numb. My sister texted him to let him know that we were done and threatened to get a retraining order if he approached me again. They also had me block him. That text went unanswered by him. I could no longer even weep because I felt numb. I gave up. I was no longer even able to fight. I was simply nodding and accepting anything they said at that point, because I was a good daughter and obeyed them. They were very kind to me in the days that followed. They were also the ones that rescued me from a poisonous guy. However, I'm under strict supervision and under home imprisonment. When they asked, I had to give them my phone so they could make sure I never got in touch with him again. I had no idea what to do once my love was torn from me. After 2 to 3 weeks, I started to feel less numb. I was upset. My sister had betrayed my trust. And I was furious. I was resentful of my father's bigotry. They had all invaded my private. And I was upset about it. Since I wasn't at blame, I was upset about the whole thing. They never offered me the consolation and encouragement I needed to be really honest with them. I made errors, but I put the responsibility on them. I sobbed and told my mother, "You know what? Even if you guys believe he is a bad person, I would rather find out on my own than have to leave him and live with regrets for the rest of my life. They treat me like a child." I informed her that I would be upset with them for their actions for the rest of my life. She encouraged me to speak with my father once again and share my story with him. She advised me to simply go ahead and marry my partner in spite of their objections and deal with the fallout. She assured me that she would be with me. I texted my dad a letter before I spoke with him. Since neither of us is aggressive, I thought this would be a suitable method to communicate my emotions. I really regret everything. I made it clear that I never intended to offend him or my relatives. Anger doesn't work with a stubborn guy like my dad. So I set it aside for this letter. I made an effort to show vulnerability. I made an effort to convey to him that all I want for is their confidence and support. My sister became very upset with me via text and branded me a manipulator for sending the letter. Even though my dad didn't respond to it, her remarks were very hurtful. That was the most tears she had ever brought to my eyes. After that, my dad came to my room to talk, or rather, to scream at me. Never before had I sobbed so much. That person in front of me wasn't my father. I had no idea he was that vicious. If I choose to remain with my lover, he threatened to divorce my mother and destroy our family. I've never felt so alone. And I'm numb and devastated. I'm at a loss on what to do. Update. Hello everyone. For the delayed update, I sincerely apologize. Although I really did not anticipate receiving so many responses to my article, I am very appreciative of all the guidance you all provided. Thank you. I was feeling really emotional and unhappy when I made that first post. As I read it now, I can already feel the tone of "oh poor me. You folks were nasty." And to be honest, I was probably expecting a lot of pity or something. You folks are absolutely correct. And I needed to hear that. My life is in my hands. And I am responsible for not standing up for myself and my partner sooner. Even if what my family did was wicked and terrible, expecting things to be done for me is not sustainable. I wanted to write this article to give you an update on what has transpired since January and to explain a few points. At least I've changed a lot since then. Even if this update may not be the most satisfactory, to begin with, I continue to communicate with my partner. Since the post was posted months later, I don't blame you for thinking differently. My family's actions of forcing me to block him everywhere, taking away my gadgets, and essentially threatening to stop talking to him were confused. That continued for about 3 days. In the middle of the night, that is, I was in tears. I missed him. BC. Additionally, BC. I'm here by myself. Really hurt. And I just want someone would hug me and truly care about what I'm going through. And I came to the realization that my family doesn't really care about me. Like, at least see how I'm doing. When they did, it was more of a check-in to make sure you knew where you were. I thus contacted him and let him in on everything. He used the phrase "I told you so" a lot. And I really do give him a lot of credit for enduring my / throughout my childhood. I was taught to be obedient for very little reward. Much like a monkey. As one commenter described it, and I reasoned that because I deserved it, I would eventually get what I wanted if I was simply tactful in my approach and still fulfilled all of their requests. No. Furthermore, this is a common occurrence. Unfortunately, parents in many societies feel they have the right to make decisions for their adult offspring, which is why this is so prevalent. My boyfriend was sympathetic and helped me realize that my living situation is violent and poisonous, and they won't respect me no matter how much I obey them and try to be nice. It's been months since I started treatment. Even worse, it's a huge assistance. I would constantly ask myself what I had done incorrectly and how I might approach things differently to get other outcomes. I always wondered why my sister would turn on me in such a manner. Among many other things, I would constantly wonder why my father would say that I deserved to be harmed. However, I no longer care about a response of any kind. I no longer believe that I need their approval in any way. I've given up on ever speaking politely to them. Any expectations I had have been let go. They still live with me. Regretfully, I don't communicate with either my sister or my father. I have a friendly relationship with my mother, but I no longer trust her with my secrets because, in the end, she feels compelled to support her husband, a 60-year-old man-child who has been verbally abusing her for years and yelling at her if things don't go his way. However, it hurts that my mother and sister chose to give him what he wants, regardless of who it is, rather than helping him become conscious of himself. It wouldn't make sense for me to temporarily drop out of school since I still have 2 years left to complete without receiving any money, and I need this degree for my profession. However, I'm attempting to move out as soon as possible and locate a secondary source of income. I agree with everyone who says he should leave me. Any guy would have. Fortunately, he is an angel. The next tale. My wife showed up at the coffee shop and continued interrupting me at home when I asked her for an hour of quiet time once a week. She accused me of cheating when I went to the library without notifying her. I've been married to my 37-year-old wife, F, for 6 years. Our daughter is 3 years old. After our kid was born, then my wife made the decision to become a Sam and didn't return to work after her maternity leave expired. Canada is where we call home. We split up the childcare and chores evenly. In order to give the infant a little mental health vacation, I watched her 2 evenings a week while she went to the gym. I asked her if I may have a peaceful night once a week. What is that, she inquired. Pretend I'm not here. I'll be in our room for an hour only, reading or listening to music. She consented. Whenever she visited our room, it was either to chat or to express her boredom to me. She became irate and said I was making excuses to avoid seeing her when I brought up our agreement. Another time, I informed her that I would be spending an hour alone reading in the neighborhood coffee shop. My spouse made the decision to pay it a surprise visit. Baby wanted to surprise her father. She stated, I just wanted a little quiet time. I responded with a grin. I had to tell her to go home since she was sitting there talking so loudly. I chose to visit the public library this time. My spouse inquired about my destination. I informed her that I wasn't sure yet, but it's my night according to our agreement. I refused to tell her where I was going, so she became agitated. It was bliss during that hour of silence. When I returned home, I was overjoyed that no one had shouted my name. My wife was upset when I got home. She questioned whether I was seeing or speaking to anybody after stating that she needed to inspect my phone. I chuckled. I'm at the library. I replied. Ask the librarians whether they noticed me. She has been quite aloof toward me and claims that because she does, I should have given her my whereabouts. I am aware that she attends the gym. Was it rude of me to keep my whereabouts a secret? Since my wife is now aware of the library, I have made the decision to remain at work later in the future and take advantage of the quiet office. Comment 1 that Op responded to was downvoted. Does your spouse have an hour to herself? Given how much she seems to want to spend time with you, does your wife get to spend time with you? It's possible that she's an extrovert who needs to recharge, while you're an introvert who needs to recharge by spending time alone, being in your presence. Oh no. I'm going to ask her if she wants to spend an hour alone or with her buddies. She goes out to lunch with other mothers. But it's not really me time since she's with our kid. Every night, we snuggle and watch TV together. Does it qualify? The second comment was downvoted. The writing style of the piece presents you in the best possible light. We split up the childcare and chores evenly. To give the infant a little mental health respite, I babysit her 2 evenings a week while she goes to the gym. Regarding the cleaning, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. However, if she's a Som, she looks after your kid every day of the week. And you may be assisting her 5 evenings a week while kindly letting her go to the gym the other 2 nights. Since the topic of this article is whether or not you are a jerk for telling your wife where you are, NTJ, you would undoubtedly be a huge jerk if the post had asked a different question. No, I'm not attempting to seem like a martyr. I wanted to clarify that I'm not a dad or spouse who is absent. She doesn't have to do all the housekeeping either. It's also my obligation since I live here. Third comment. She may be insecure. In my opinion, sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. And I'm too shit. She is showing up at random during your peaceful time because of this. She could believe that you are having an affair. How about setting out some time for the 2 of you as well, on a certain day of the week? Take a stroll or get coffee by yourself. She will likely not bother you throughout your time and will feel a lot better. NTA, for not disclosing your location. But you can make some adjustments to make things better. Oh no. To be honest, I wouldn't have objected to taking an alone break at home to update one if she had vowed not to bother me, since it really improves my mental health. I received a lot of direct messages asking whether I spoke with her and why I wanted time alone. I'm at a loss on what to do. She's certain that I'm having an affair now. I despise her. Therefore, I need time alone in her conspiracy scheme. That night, I was by myself with some AP. She won't even engage in a civil dialogue with me. I told her that if it calms her down, I can have my alone time at home, but only if she swears not to bother me. She sarcastically said, "What would my AP think I just gave up?" Trying to persuade her. It has been difficult. Until things improve. I don't intend to take my quiet time any longer. She disturbs my alone time at home. For instance, I once watched an old sitcom rerun on our bedroom TV as I lay in bed to unwind. She asked what I was viewing as she opened the door. "Seinfeld," I said. She then took a seat and continued to complain about the show's lack of interest and overappreciation, continued by describing Jerry Seinfeld as a repulsive person. "This show isn't even funny," she continued. Then it went on and on. I informed her that I wasn't watching the program to learn anything. "You chose to watch this crap. But I could be watching a good show with you right now," she replied. I said, "We do that every night after we put the baby to bed." She responded, "Then why wasting your time watching this? I just turned off TV." I was done. Update 2. My life has been a living hell. I checked my cell phone. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. In a lengthy talk with her closest friend, she revealed that she knows I'm cheating, which is why I'm avoiding her and want to spend time alone. She claimed to be irritated because she just knew but was unable to show it. She should trust her heart. According to her closest buddy, despite my repeated attempts to sit her down and have a conversation, she ended up shouting at me and becoming much more agitated. She avoids talking to me and is very chilly to me. I'm a complete disaster mentally. Yesterday, I wanted to take a lengthy stroll. I informed her of my destination. I chose not to go when she rolled her eyes and remarked, "More alone times or mistress misses you." To be honest, I have no idea how to prove myself. I stopped spending time alone myself. Date evenings are also over since she doesn't even communicate with me. One calm to alone reading session at the library caused me to wreck my marriage. She no longer attends the gym. It was added later. I questioned her about it. "You were planning to bring your mistress home when I'm not home." Update 3. "Why do you care?" she said. I made an effort to give her a memorable Mother's Day. Together with our child, I created a handmade card with her handprint. A beautiful meal was prepared for her by our child, myself, and technically our child. She held our child and thanked her. But our relationship remained unchanged. I had a barbecue planned for supper. It occurred to me that the propane tank needed to be replaced. I informed her that I would purchase one. I made the foolish decision to get a special Mother's Day dessert from the neighborhood French bakery, since they had her favorite dessert and it would be a pleasant surprise for her. I felt that the queue was worth it. My wife exploded when I got home. She began yelling that the reason it took so long was because I was out with my mistress. I presented the dessert to her. She took it out of my grasp and tossed it in the garbage, claimed that it is a front for my affair. I explained to her how I might have met my imaginary mistress and purchased this in less than an hour. She said she was finished. She took our child and walked away. Her parents have been housing her. She didn't respond when I attempted to reach her. I suppose discussing joint custody with an attorney is the next step. Version 4. As I previously said, I had a conversation with an attorney. Right now, we're working on establishing a custody agreement. And because she doesn't have a job, I'll also need to pay alimony and child support, although she is remaining with us. I am grateful that she allowed me to see our child. She continues to claim that I destroyed the family by being self-centered and not standing up for it. I feel bad because I could spend all of my time with my child. And I wonder if I was being selfish. My wife seemed to have made up her mind, which is devastating. Additionally, I've begun individual treatment after realizing that, if she isn't ready, I can't manage her suspicions or regain her confidence on my own. I have power over how I respond to this entire circumstance and how I present myself to my child. Just so you know, I never cheated on her. No, I'm not dating anybody at the moment. To be honest, I don't know what's going on with her right now. She may or may not be seeing someone, but it is none of my concern. My attention is on my child and ensuring that she feels supported and cherished.